WJXT is about to present a factual report on an especially sensitive and emotional subject. Some of what you will see and hear may be disturbing to you and other members of your household, particularly children. Some of the language used by persons interviewed will be offensive and shocking to many in our audience. The language has been retained where it is the person's usual manner of expression so that you may receive as true a picture as possible of their real world. The events, places, and participants are real. This is not a dramatization. Wherever the producers became involved in these events, you will be told. The true names of some of the young people you will see have been changed in their interest.
Where you at, sugar?
Going to Tallahassee.
Oh, come on, I'll take you up to Interstate 10 and I'll get you right up there.
Each year, 1 in 7 teenagers runs away. Many return home. But what about those who don't?
You're kind of young to be out here trying to be yourself.
Negatory.
The average runaway is white, female, 15 years old, from a middle-class family. Every year, the number of children who never return home is rising. This is their story.
I'm wanting to get home.
You're never going to get home. You're going to grow old and die here and be buried here, and your grandkids are going to put flowers on you here.
Wards of the Street is presented as a service to the community by Barnett Bank.
Barnett Bank is pleased to sponsor Wards of the Street, a powerful documentary dealing with a serious problem that tears families apart and destroys lives, the problem of runaways. The problems we face in Jacksonville are no different than the problems of any other large city. The difference is that we live here and we can make a difference here. Our sponsorship of this program is part of a larger commitment, a commitment that touches every aspect of our community through education, the arts, sports, and human services. And supporting this program is just one of the ways Barnett Bank is helping turn good intentions into reality.
For a list of organizations aiding runaways and their families, or information on how you can help, pick up this free brochure at any Barnett Bank.
When Lori Ann left home, she had only a 9th grade education. A straight-A student, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and sweet 16, she might easily have been the captain of the cheerleading squad. Instead, she's a topless dancer in Orlando.
I've grown up very fast, and sometimes I act like a child and I get cut down for it. Because, for one thing, I am a child, still, in a sense. And I have a right to act like one, but when I'm living a life of an adult, I don't have the right to act like a child.
Terry has been on the street 2 years. At one time, she was hoping to go to college. These days, she's a hooker, and she's just hoping to turn enough tricks to rent a room for the night.
I see runaways all the time, and I really feel sorry for them. I think, God, you're going to go through the same shit. You're going to get old before your time. You're going to begin to look old. Like, I used to have a 14-year-old little face, you know, but my face is mature. It hardens you. It does. It really hardens you. You see some of these girls out here, and you think, God, look how old they are. But they're only like in their 20s. It's from the drugs, the abuse. God, you know, it's just so much out here.
Derek left home in the Midwest when he was 13. By the time he reached Daytona Beach, all his belongings had been stolen. He became a male prostitute.
Yeah, I wasn't even into the gay scene down here when I first come. And it just ended up, I said sure, because I was that hungry and I needed the money that bad and I needed a place.
None of these kids, nor the other children you'll meet in this broadcast tonight, ever dreamed they would end up living on the street. After all, no children get the chance to pick their parents or the situation they're born into. At this age, it's hard to imagine a child growing up in a world of pimps, pushers, and Johns. According to the FBI, more than 1 million children will run away from home this year for a few days, a few weeks, or forever. Almost another million will be thrown out or abandoned. It's a problem which has become an epidemic, and like most epidemics, it knows no social, economic, or religious bounds. This is the beach community of Selva Marina. Houses here sell for between $150,000 and $200,000. A membership in the country club costs a minimum of $750 a year. It is in this neighborhood that George and Marissa Bennett have been raising their 4 children for the past 10 years. Their 15-year-old son, Michael, lives in this room, a bare mattress, a closet without clothing, and a pet rat in a cage. The accommodations are his own choosing. He's been into drugs and drinking and is a chronic runaway.
He tears his clothes off of himself, and he's put a dent in our paneling. He's torn the banister off of the steps. He tore his door off of his room. He sprinkled alcohol on his fingers in the kitchen one day, set fire to them, and then flipped it over on my drapes and burned them down.
It's easy to write Michael off as the bad kid who turned his back on seemingly good parents, but Michael has told counselors his behavior and his running are his way of getting back at his parents. He claims they abuse him. His mother once went so far as to shoot a pistol into the air during a violent family argument.
One night, if she hadn't put one through the ceiling, either he or I probably would have got hurt.
As you'll see later, Michael is one of thousands of kids who run to escape troubled homes. More than half the runaways in America have been abused or neglected. 1/3 have been victims of incest. Most of the rest are what are called throwaways, children who have been kicked out of the home and cannot return. Most people regard running away as a family matter, but the story of these children is far from that. What happens to these kids says something about us as a society and a community. After all, ours is supposed to be the country where parents reach out for something better for their children and get it. The youngsters in this broadcast tonight will tell you, for them, that is a cruel myth.
Come to the beach in Florida.
Florida attracts runaways the way it attracts tourists. We are second only to California in the numbers who come here. Like a funnel, the highways from the Midwest and the North empty into Jacksonville, dumping more than 3,500 children onto our streets and beaches every year. However, Jacksonville does not attach a very high priority to helping runaways. Before we examine that, we need to understand what a child experiences on the road.
Now, we got any good-looking beavers out there want to take a ride and going south?
It is mid-afternoon at a truck stop in Baldwin.
Now, she's definitely got to be good-looking, and I don't want her in my tractor trailer, bud.
For girls, the runaway episode often begins here at the truck stops.
Now, where you want to go?
Back to Indiana.
Now, where you at, darling?
With the help of trucker Randy Thomas and his wife Betty, we were able to catch up with the young girl you just heard on the CB. When we found her, she told producer Robbie Gordon that she had been running off and on since her 14th birthday. For Kathy, running was a way of leaving the hassles at home.
I wanted to get away from the family a while instead of sitting at home and listening to them gripe at each other and everything. And well, I just said, to heck with it, I'm leaving.
Disharmony in the home make many kids like Kathy run. The troubles they leave behind are replaced by the adventure of traveling in the cab of a semi.
I most of the time party with drivers and everything. Get a bunch of them together in one truck. That's more fun, getting more people.
Overnight, kids like Kathy begin traveling in an adult world. Instead of ice cream and cookies, now it's something more grown-up.
Jack Daniels and Budweiser.
Some of them they never go home. They just live in these trucks going from one state to the other. The girls mostly, the guys will pick them up and they just carry them from one truck stop to the other, and they just stay on the road. They get money from the drivers, and the drivers keep them in money and keep them in smoking dope, as they call it.
But the girls quickly learn they have to give to get.
You won't get naked with us?
Then charge me rent to take me down there?
Yeah, you know he's going to charge you rent.
Like, they would use me, you know, physically, but I didn't care because it was just a place to stay. It was better than sleeping out in the cold somewhere.
It's a real narrow line there between willingness and unwillingness. I guess they don't want to really be beat up so bad, you know, and all this, so they just give in.
Boys may not have to offer sex in exchange for rides, but they don't always find a warm place to sleep either.
We came off 95. We came down through here.
David and Buddy left their homes in Portland, Maine last winter to look for work in the Florida orange groves.
You know, we was getting pretty tired, so we walked along here and looked up there. You know,
they thought they'd find palm trees, coconuts, and plenty of girls in bikinis. Instead, on one of the coldest nights of Jacksonville's winter, David and Buddy had to sleep underneath an I-95 overpass.
We'd sleep for an hour and then keep waking up, and I was freezing. I didn't get no sleep. You know, I just sitting up shaking.
Despite the hardships, David and Buddy are still optimistic that they'll be able to find work and make it on their own. But what about those who don't? What happens to the Davids and the Buddies who discover they can't earn enough money to survive?
They'll steal your CB radio, your fuzzbuster, or bird dog as we call them. They'll steal anything like that that they can sell right quick to another truck driver in the other end of the parking lot and make a buck on it.
If they don't steal, they may try selling drugs, or, as this boy explains, there is a scam they pull known as airbagging, or selling air.
Like people come and say, you know where I can get some pot? And you'll say, okay, yeah, how much you want? They say they want an ounce. You say, okay, that's going to be $35. If you take them to a motel or to a residential area, they give you the money and you just take off.
Ripping people off, of course, has a high risk. For those who don't want to steal, there are few choices left, except for the one known on the street as easy money.
You don't want to hurt nobody. You don't want to go to jail for it. So the next thing you do, you know, you sell your body because you don't want you don't want those kind of problems.
This is the New York Port Authority bus terminal, one of the largest bus stations in the world. Counselors who work with runaways estimate a kid arriving here alone and rootless has as little as a half an hour before he or she is swept into a new and dangerous life. The reason is, all around this bus station are pimps and hustlers who are waiting for these children. First they befriend the kids, and then they use them to make money. Less than a block from here is the notorious 42nd Street.
You step immediately into the world's biggest sex industry. It is an industry that employs and needs to employ thousands and thousands of young people.
Father Bruce Ritter runs two of the largest runaway centers in New York. He's been taking in kids since 1968.
They are extremely vulnerable, they are seducible, they are inexperienced, they are unskilled, and by the thousands and thousands every year, they become the merchandise in this massive sex industry.
And I got to 42nd Street, and I seen all these lights and all these people, you know, and young people too, my age. And I was walking around my suitcases, you know, and all these people were coming up to me. You know, I got drugs, I got this, you know, hey, baby.
Melissa, at the age of 13, got a job working in a peep show on 42nd Street.
You're either on the stage or in a booth, you know, and in the booth, you sit there and, you know, people come in and they put 4 quarters in a machine and you pick up a phone and they talk to you and they'll tell you, you know, to do this or they'll tell you to do that. I mean, I've had couples come in there, old couples, like in their 50s and 60s, you know, and the wife telling me, you know, oh, my husband loves you, and, you know, and I love my husband because he loves you, and, you know, you look at these people and you're like, wow, you could be my grandmother, you know.
The young boys who sell their bodies are known as chickens. The men who pick them up, chicken hawks. It's common knowledge on the street that chicken hawks, or Johns, like their partners young.
Like right now, I can pull maybe 2-3 tricks in one night. You know, real easy. I make, you know, real nice money, but after a while, after my looks start going away, man, Johns don't want you no more.
I know a lot of guys who will actually pay you money just to get them a girl that's 12 or 13 years old, because they just like it.
I didn't know that there were national prostitution rings dealing in runaway children. I didn't know you could buy a child outright for good in New York City for $5,000, that you could buy a child in San Diego for $500.
When Dotson Rader began researching his article on runaways for Parade magazine last year, he made some discoveries that horrified him.
You know, runaway children have the highest incidence of malnutrition in the United States, the highest mortality rate in the United States. The second leading cause of death among runaway boys is rectal hemorrhage. That's from sexual activities. You tell me why this country doesn't do something about it.
He began reporting on runaways because of an experience he had one day while walking to the train in Times Square.
I saw a boy, 11, sleeping on a subway grating on 8th Avenue. And I didn't know he was asleep. I thought he was sick.
Rader befriended that boy, bought him a hamburger, and then found out the child was a drug addict.
And in the restaurant, he said they're trying to eat the hamburger and holding on to his sweaters. And I just reached out and pulled the sweater up, and his hands were covered with track marks.
Rader's work helped persuade Congress to fund more runaway shelters last year. But for the young heroin addict on 8th Avenue, it was too late.
He's dead now. He would have been 12 today.
New York attracts an estimated 2,000 runaways a month. It is the runaway capital of the country. But what about the other cities and towns our children run to? In the bus stations and streets of a Cincinnati or a Minneapolis or cities here in Florida, what can a runaway kid expect? To find out, we went to Orlando, home of Mickey Mouse and Pluto, a city which caters to good, wholesome family fun. 9:45 p.m. The bus from Jacksonville is just pulling into the Orlando station. In the crowd is a girl named Brenda who has agreed to pose as a runaway for us for an experiment. Brenda knows the part well. She has been a runaway since age 13 and has also been a prostitute. On this night, she walked into the bus terminal with the disembarking passengers.
Not a mess around.
We have instructed Brenda not to initiate conversation with anyone. If asked, she is to indicate only that she's alone, new in town, and has just arrived from Kansas.
I ain't interested.
In an hour and a half at the bus terminal, Brenda was offered money for sex 3 times and was approached by a drug dealer. Finally, she met a man who said he was a pimp.
He said he was a pimp, right off. And he said, "You're such a pretty white snow, and, you should come on and be with me. I'm a good pimp, or good macaroni is what he said he was." What does macaroni mean?
Yeah, when I ain't got no lady, I still get money. A pimp that when he ain't got no lady, but a macaroni, keep on macking, he keep on getting money. Yes.
How does he keep getting money without ladies?
Because he can talk.
The way he explained it was macaroni is a man that can keep money rolling in regardless if he has a girl working for him or not. I'm not into that. I'm not into selling my body,
What you into?
Anything but that, right?
Yeah, I bet you can boost with a white girl can boost more money.
No, I don't do anything illegal. I know. I'm not into having a pimp or a man.
Yeah, well, shit, you don't, you squash right out the game in this town, man.
Our experience in the bus station would not startle Orlando police, as I found out in a conversation with investigator Robert Caslin. In terms of your bus stations in the city, are there people who go in there looking for runaways to try to bring them into crime?
Yes, we have people that go in there looking for children to get involved with sex crimes like prostitution.
What about Jacksonville?
It's alive and well in Jacksonville, unfortunately. We have these chicken hawks here. We've run into these chicken hawks here, and we've had to get the children back from these chicken hawks once they've been approached.
You might say, teenagers selling sex here? Impossible. Well, according to a girl who says she knows from experience, it's actually quite common. Sandy is 17. She says she's been turning tricks in Jacksonville since she reached puberty.
Almost all of them out there are below 18.
In Jacksonville?
There's maybe 2 or more at the most, 4 girls out there over 18 prostituting. The rest of them are underage.
The youngsters who are caught in street life are in just as much trouble in Jacksonville, if not more, than they are in New York. Because in many cases, our resources are much less appropriate than the ones they'd find there.
When you talk to the kids out on the street, none of them will tell you they're planning to make a life of this. But how long can a child last out here before reaching the point of no return?
The kid's been on the street for 6 months or a year. It's almost all over. A year, it's all over. He's still breathing in and out, but he's not going to live. He's already dead, and you're not going to be able to turn that kid around.
A child who has to sell his or her body quickly suffers emotional bruising that leaves permanent scars.
You just build up this hatred towards men. I can never love a man. I could never enjoy sex with a man. So even if I went to school and got a square job, it wouldn't help me none because, it would take me years to get over this, if I ever would get over it,
Brenda is the young woman you saw earlier in the Orlando bus station. She ran away from home 5 years ago and has been out on the street ever since.
I've had guns pulled out of me. I've been stabbed. I've been beat up real bad to where I couldn't crawl to the door, in a motel room where nobody's around. I've had other girls that were stabbed in the back through their lungs. They were in the hospital for months. I've seen girls beaten by pimps with coat hangers.
Brenda lives in motel rooms, taking her teddy bears and mementos wherever she moves. Like many of the girls we interviewed, she became a mother in her teens. Her daughter is being raised by Brenda's parents. The child thinks Brenda is her sister. Given her own experience, we asked, how would Brenda feel if one day she learned her daughter ran away?
I don't know. I'd probably cry.
The boys who peddle sex are not so open about their feelings. They face a different kind of confusion. Donnie has been a male prostitute for only a few months. He is 15.
I can't handle being around them, how should we say, homosexuals. I want their money, but I hate their guts, and sometimes I feel like just for no reason just knocking the hell out of them.
You don't consider yourself a homosexual?
No. Well, I don't know. I don't like it.
In the beginning, a kid will say, you know, hey, Bruce, you know, I ain't gay, I ain't no hustler, I'm just trying to make a few bucks. And in the beginning, they try very hard, these kids, to separate out inside their heads what they really are from what they have to do with their bodies.
I put my mind somewhere else when I'm with the guy, when I'm with the trick.
You're with them, you have to,
I block everything out except I'm not picturing them what they're doing. I'm aware of them being there, but I just try. I think about, oh well, I had a good time, you know, like I'm with my friends or something that I've done, to block it out because I don't like to think about it.
I used drugs so I didn't have to deal with what was going on. I didn't like myself. You know, I wasn't proud of going to bed with guys. If I was doing it without drugs, you know, I think I would have went crazy.
I've seen 13-year-old junkies in alleys and laying on the side of the road shooting drugs, and I mean their arms are so scarred up and bruised up from shooting that needle in their arm at 13 years old, man. I swear to God, 13 years old, man, that's the prime of your life, you know.
By the time a young prostitute is hooked on drugs, their easy money is easily spent.
If you add it up, you say a person will do 10 Dilaudid in one day. Dilaudid is a synthetic heroin. It's a downer, okay? And that's what most of the people do around here. $40 a shot. You say you're doing at least 10 shots a day. You know, that's a lot of money.
After children are rubbed up against a life of drugs and sex for survival, it's no wonder their youth is just simply erased forever.
You go to a private room, you take off everything except for your bottoms, you're topless, and you sit on a man's lap, and you dance. Or
is he allowed to touch you, or?
He's not allowed to, but a lot of them try. A lot of them are worse than children. You say no, and they're going to keep pushing for more.
What do you do for fun?
I don't have time to have fun. When I get off of work, I go have breakfast. I go home and I go to sleep. I sleep half the day, and I get up and I start getting ready to go back to work. So I don't have time for fun.
All these people your age watching television, you know, what would you say to them?
One thing for sure is don't grow up too fast. It hurts real bad when you can't be a child. Can't run to mommy and daddy anymore.
When we come back, we'll look at the reasons why so many kids are out here on their own.
From the moment I could talk, I was ordered to listen. Now there's a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go.
We are all too aware of the current economic situation. The unemployment rate nationwide hovers around 10%, and young people as a group have been hit the hardest. Over 25% are unable to find jobs. The problems of unemployment often result as much from a shortage of necessary skills as from the inability to find a job. At Barnett Bank, we support the Summer Youth Employment Program to help young people develop the marketable skills they need to find full-time employment. Terrell Walker joined Barnett Bank in the Summer Employment Program, and today he is a shipping clerk working full-time at our operations warehouse. A business's best resource is, and always will be, its people. Providing job opportunities to Jacksonville's young people is just one of the ways that Barnett Bank is helping to turn good intentions into reality.
I'm a good person. I don't know why I have to go through this here. I asked for help, and I knew that when
this woman's daughter has run more than a dozen times in the past year.
Every time my phone rings, I'm scared to answer it for fear someone's going to say, we found your daughter dead somewhere. I don't know. I just don't know.
Mrs. Baker is legally blind. It is difficult for her to look for her daughter herself. She has heard Laura is engaging in prostitution in the Ashley Davis Street area downtown. For those two reasons, Nelson Mashur has volunteered to search for the 13-year-old girl.
And we wanted to know if we could bring a picture over, if your undercover people could, keep an eye out on her.
Mashur is a counselor at the Jacksonville Transient Youth Center, the oldest runaway shelter in Florida. It is on rare occasions that Mashur can actually go looking for children himself. He does it when he feels they're in danger. This is one such occasion.
Have you seen this girl at the Clear White Mission here?
Yes.
When did you last see her?
Yesterday.
At the Clara White Mission, Mashur learns that Laura was last seen trying to sell a ring to get money.
Amos, don't you be seeing that little girl what we talking about? I told you I said, look at there, know who she was. Yeah, she be up here every night.
A half hour later, across town at the Duval Detention Center, Laura is brought in by Jacksonville police officer Eric Simmons. Laura is a child who has fallen through the cracks of the available social services. Often, the system does not reach children until their problems are almost beyond solving.
The child does admit that she has run away 12 times. And also, I would like to bring to the court's attention that we have 11 referrals that HRS is aware of, and there are 2 physical abuse, 2 neglect referrals, as well as runaway referrals.
Despite all that running and repeated contact with the state agency that is supposed to help, Laura was given no counseling. HRS workers handle caseloads of 25 to 40 families a month. They can see the emphasis is more often on processing children than on patching up their problems.
You can't measure quality, you can only measure quantity. And a state agency such as this one tends to fall into the trap of measuring quantitatively. Historically, it's been that a child cannot get help until they break the law, or until their behavior becomes so destructive that somebody says, hey, we got to do something.
The child states that she has run away for a variety of reasons.
As many times as Laura has been referred to HRS, she has rarely seen the same caseworker twice.
I'm just filling in, I'm just handling detentions today, so obviously know nothing about the case, except that I did have a long chance to talk with, and I'd like to at least...
They may touch 5 or 6 of our workers in the course of their travels through our system. And it's just not possible for the child, the family, or the worker to develop what would be called a therapeutic relationship.
The 2 counselors present agree that a psychiatric evaluation of the girl should be the next step. They disagree, however, on where to put her in the meantime.
I would recommend that she be held in a secure facility.
Laura's alleged involvement in prostitution and her repeated running make Mashur believe she should be locked in detention. HRS counselor Mariana Van Heining has a different view.
It would look from the number of referrals that HRS may have dropped the ball on this one. I do feel that the youngster has never been placed in emergency shelter. And again, I'm not sure that putting her with delinquents is going to be of any benefit to her.
The question, what to do with Laura and kids like her, is one Judge Safer has to answer almost every day. In the eyes of Florida law, running away is not a crime. Nevertheless, children here cannot live on their own until age 18. Safer and other judges believe there are cases where some youngsters have to be locked up for their own good.
And if the child is a persistent runaway, remember, this is what we're talking about, a persistent runaway. If I place the child in a facility that's not secure, the child's liable to run and never show up at the next hearing.
This is detention, where juvenile delinquents, young criminals, are held. Unlike a runaway shelter, the kids here have lost their freedom. They are policed in the showers, locked in their rooms after 9:30 at night, and are monitored by cameras everywhere they walk or congregate. Critics say Safer's practice of putting runaways in with delinquents exposes non-criminals to the worst possible influence.
If I were to place you outside of the home, but in a place that does not have bars around it, will you stay there so that we can try to give you some help? Yes. You understand, if you run away, that what will happen is we'll just find you again, and I'll lock you up, and I won't trust you anymore. Do you understand that?
Yes. Safer rules against detention. He places Laura at Buckner Manor, the city's home for unwed teenage mothers, which also has space for runaways.
Mr. Mashur, if she runs, then I just made a mistake.
10 days later, before the psychiatric exam is completed, Laura Baker runs from Buckner Manor. Before long, a worker at the Clara White Mission spots Laura in the lunch line again. She calls police, and once again, Laura finds herself in another courtroom with yet another HRS caseworker. This time, the judge is Dorothy Pate.
I'm going to sign the order for you to be detained.
This time, Laura is locked up. The case of Laura Baker points out some of the major flaws in the way Duval County deals with runaways. For one thing, the burden of solving the runaway problem in Jacksonville rests almost entirely with the state. The agency carrying the load, the Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services, has had its funding reduced drastically over the past 2 years. The Children, Youth, and Family Services program has been cut by almost $1 million.
So what we have is a group of youngsters which are probably the most difficult of any we have to deal with. They have very active, difficult problems, most of them, and we have the least resources to deal with them.
What is especially frustrating, Haiti says, is that prevention is cheaper in the long run.
There is so much that happens in the dynamics of a family that you have to repair, that to do it at that point is so much more costly to everyone than if we'd been able to find the problem early and try to fix the problem early.
What is needed, say those who work with runaways, is more community involvement in preventive measures.
The private sector, the religious sector, must take a larger share of responsibility for working with families as groups and with children as individuals in keeping those families together.
What is shocking to me and shameful to me is that except for 2 centers in New York funded by the Catholic Church, there isn't a single runaway facility in the United States funded by a church. You've got people, children, out there starving, selling their bodies to get money to eat with no place to stay within a block of a church.